Hello everyone, Lady Pop Hunter here, back again with another Friday challenge, comic book challenge posed by Collector Comic Geek. This week's challenge was comics that has inspired movies or TV shows. So he wants us to show comic books in our collection that inspired a movie or a TV show, and also I picked out some that inspired animated cartoons because those are like TV shows. So the first one that I have is Flash Gordon, and Flash Gordon has a animated cartoon that came out in 1976, and it has several movies that came out. So this is Flash Gordon. This one is a King Comics that came out in the 50s. And Batman, of course, had countless movies that are still going on. The last movie came out was in 2022. It had a ton of animated series, animated cartoons. And TV shows. We know the 66 Batman. So Batman. The Joker. We just had a Joker movie. He's a Batman villain, of course. But the Joker movie came out when, I think in 2021. I can't remember. 2019, I believe, with Joaquin Phoenix. Great movie. So the Joker movie, and he's been in a lot of the animated series, Batman animated series, and all of the Batman TV shows, and some of the Batman movies, because he's one of the main villains. And Man-Thing. Man-Thing has a movie that came out in 2005. It's streaming now on Tubi. It's actually not that great of a movie, but it did spawn a movie. Man-Thing. Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing had a weekly TV series that only lasted one season. It was a really good TV show, and it had several movies. Swamp Thing came out. The movie came out in the 80s, and then they also had Swamp Thing Returns, and it had a short running cartoon series that was only 5 episodes that spawned a toy line. I don't know, you might can see it right here, but these toys came from the animated cartoon. Didn't last long. The cartoon wasn't that great, but it did have movies, a TV series that came out in the late 2000s, and a cartoon series. Mask. Mask is an animated TV show, lasted only one season, came out in 1985. It's a pretty good show. It's about these vehicles here, and it's a good animated series. It's streaming now on Tubi, so if you have Tubi, you can watch it. It used to come on in the afternoon after school cartoon special. Defenders of the Earth, another animated cartoon series that came out in the 80s, in 1986. Only had one series, but in that series you had the Phantom, which I'll show a book from him in a little bit. You had Mandrake, Flash Gordon was in there. Defenders of the Earth. The Shadow. The Shadow had a movie series that came out. Green Lantern. Green Lantern had a movie that came out in 2011. And then this one also has Green Arrow. And I know Green Arrow had a TV series that came out on the CW or WB network. The Phantom. The Phantom had a movie and TV series that came out. One movie came out in 96, but they had one that was earlier than that. And you can also stream that on Tubi. Now this one is a magazine. It's like the magazine style comic. And this is Hammer House of Horror. And Hammer House had a lot of movies and a TV series similar to, I'll say is in that Hitchcock vein. Those standalone movie, TV shows, which are really good. And the Hammer films are pretty good. They're pretty much B films, but they have some good actors. And you can always tell, once you start watching Hammer films, you can kind of tell that that's what you're watching from the feel of it and the writing style. But they also had a comic. It's like a comic magazine. Planet of the Apes. Planet of the Apes is a movie that came out in the 60s. It had Roddy McDowall and it had Charlton Heston. It also had cartoon and a TV series that came out in the 70s. Both had, in the cartoon, Roddy McDowall played did the voice acting for his character. And in the TV show, he was in the suit, but he had a different name. Basically kind of the same character. He just had a different name, and he was a fugitive with two other astronauts that were transported to the future into his time, and they became fugitives. It's actually a pretty good show. The movies continued on all the way to the 2000s. So it has countless movies, a movie series, the TV show, and the animated series. Now I have two kind of honorable mentions. And the reason why I say honorable mentions is because these were TV shows, but I'm not sure which one came first, the TV show or the comic. So I'm going to just say that these are honorable mentions. Twilight Zone. If you haven't heard of Twilight Zone, I don't know, you live under a rock. But Twilight Zone came out early in the 50s, had some movies, had spin-offs that came out in the 80s. They recently did another Twilight Zone in the late 2000s. In the late 2000s. They always try to bring it back, but it never really holds up. But Rod Serling in the 50s, Twilight Zone is the best. You can watch it now and doesn't feel dated. It's relevant to our times now. But Twilight Zone did have a comic series. And the last one is Thriller with Boris Karloff. And that's like a Alfred Hitchcock Twilight Zone kind of thing, Outer Limits type feel, where he's hosting and you just have your shows, your anthologies, and it's pretty good. It's on Tubi, so you can stream it on Tubi, get a sense of it, but it's a pretty good series with Boris Karloff. And that is it. So this week's challenge was comic books that inspired movies or TV shows, and I also showed you a few that spawned some cartoon series. So again, thank you to Comic Book Geek, Collector Comic Geek, for putting out the weekly challenge, and we will see you again soon.